I work the night shift at my local ER, been doing it for about 2 years. Trust me, it's miserable. But you know the only thing worse than being an ER doctor on night shift? I'll save you the thinking, it's being an ER nurse at night shift. I get shit on constantly, and I'm out of the loop on a lot of issues that are above my pay grade. For a while I figured I was just miserable, but lately there's been patients coming in that are just different. At first I didn't put the pieces together, some people had been in a fight, others a car accident. Then the real horror stories began. Somebody came in missing an arm. Not like a hand, I mean a full arm. Looked like a bear jack, but how many bears roam around in the middle of Los Angeles? We called them M85s. 85 was our code for what we suspected was drug abusers, but tests came back clean. Best I could figure was a new drug on the market. M for mayhem, which is what a lot of them were coming in on. They'd been arrested for general mayhem, in other words. But shit really turned up after about the 3rd week of this. The doctors kept me out of the loop, but all these people had some really wild sign on them. It was like a scar on their hand on the outside, and a kind of strange shape. It was hard to tell what it looked like, kind of a Y but not really. Anyway, the first dozen or so cases we figured it was injury. When I put the pieces together I was so proud of myself. I went to tell the doctor on staff, and he got really cold about it. Probably busted it up coming in here, Janice, he'd said. But look at these cases, they all had it. And it's not new, it looks like an old scar, I shot back, showing him admitted cases over the last few days. A coincidence, he said coldly, leave it alone. I thought nothing of it at the time, figured he was just having a bad day. It wasn't until this evening, when I showed up for work, that I happened to see that same doctor on staff. His name is Dr. Russell. We'd worked together for only about 6 months. He was often on the night shift the same nights that I was. He was a tight-lipped guy, very curt with staff, but he seemed to be a really hands-on doctor. I thought that I was going to make his day with my info, especially since he'd taken special interest in the new cases, but unfortunately I was mistaken. I thought little of it at the time, just figured he was a jerk. A lot of them are, to be honest, but it wasn't until tonight that I started feeling like something is seriously wrong. He seemed the same as always. Cold, busy working. It wasn't until around 11 p.m., which was just about 30 minutes ago, that I noticed it. His right hand was bandaged. Now, normally one might freak out in these circumstances, and trust me, I'm no different. But Russell wasn't a guy you could talk to casually. He was uptight in every sense of the word, spoke hardly to staff and was even quite curt with patients. The only cases he seemed to take special interest in was the ones who came in with the aforementioned injuries, and while that always seemed like a macabre fascination on his part, I was now suspecting that there was a bit more to it. My first inkling was to research this Dr. Russell. All I had to go on was his name, which was Timothy, and the fact that I knew he must have come out school within the last 5 years or so. This based on what I assumed his age was, which couldn't have been older than 30 or 35. I must have been wrong, though, because even in 2019, where literally everyone and their mother has a social networking account, this guy didn't. In fact, there was no information whatsoever about him, not even the cursory publications that most have to do in graduate school. He was for all intents and purposes an invisible man. Some time passed and I decided to just keep an eye on him. The cases kept coming in, more frequently now, and I waited for the right time to confront him. It had been about 3 days, and he always had that bandage on. I overheard him tell others that he'd had a fall, but it goes without saying that I was a bit dubious. Finally I caught him making a coffee between cases. I jumped right into action. "Oh, not that one, doctor!" I yelled, grabbing the coffee carafe and dumping it. "That's been there since morning. Let me make you a fresh pot." I started preparing as he stood there, seemingly dumbfounded. "So these new cases," I began, "quite something. Do we have any idea what that's all about?" "None," he shot back quickly. "Really? It seems like, I don't know, maybe viral." "Maybe," he said plainly. "How's your hand?" I asked, frustrated. "Fell, but getting better." "Did you want a new bandage?" He said nothing, and stared at the coffee intently. "We have more bandages, I can change it," I started, before he quickly interrupted me. "You don't drink coffee, Janice," he mumbled, pointing at the carafe. He was right, and as I looked at the coffee maker and saw the light brown, almost translucent liquid. I realized that he'd gotten my number. I mean, I don't, but I just thought I'd make a new pot. Yes, he interrupted, very impressive. Slowly, he turned and closed the door to the coffee lounge. My heart nearly stopped as I heard the click of the door lock and he turned back again. "I'd be happy to show you my hand," he said, drawing closer, "but I must warn you, it's highly contagious." I tried to speak, but my throat was frozen. "Go ahead," he said, outstretching his hand, "remove the bandage." As I stood still, he drew closer. "No!" I shrieked, shaking. He chuckled dismissively, turned to the door and started to unlock it. "I thought as much," he said as he turned back to me, "but Janice, I'm afraid you've gotten too close. Tomorrow evening my office, 11 p.m, take the rest of the night off." Then he turned and quickly left the room. Now I'm sitting at home, daunting going in for that meeting tomorrow. My shift starts at 9, and I've resolved to take the day doing more research. I hope I can muster the strength to go in there and figure out what's going on. If you like this story, smash the like button, and subscribe to the channel. Also, if you want to be notified on the latest videos, hit that notification bell.